Hi everyone, Alex Tardy here with Weather Echo, and we have an insight for you. This is in fact an update. We've been talking about this potential for the past 10 days. No one else has insights this detailed this far out. Major precipitation through the holidays and even early January 2026. Continuous atmospheric rivers. Let's take a look at what is setting up. Okay, we have an atmospheric river right now from Hawaii up into Seattle. Another in a series bringing more precipitation and heavy in the Pacific Northwest. And one coming out of the Gulf. Now, notice the one south of Hawaii, it's extended all the way into the tropics, not just the subtropics. That is a Pineapple Express. This is a satellite view today, December 18th. Now, we've got problems in California with snowpack. Record low, 4% northern Sierra Nevada. The average, 18%. We rely on snow for recreation and also for the most important water supply, the California gold. So we have not seen values this low, this deep into the water year or this deep into December. So will we make up for it? Okay, 4 weeks of dry in California, that's not helping, of course. That's what's causing the snow, drought, and lack of precipitation, and the tule fog under all this warm air. Now, we've had a lot of precipitation in Southern California back in November, just before Thanksgiving, but Northern California didn't see that. Recently, the Pacific Northwest has been really wet all the way through Montana, as shown here, above average or wetter than usual. Now, if you look at temperature, really stands out. Warm in the west, cold in the east. But look at the Great Lakes, how cold it's been in the past 30 days. Now look at the west, the Great Basin, the mountains. That's the warmth we're talking about. Those in the Central Valley, California don't know what we're talking about with warmth. Temperatures have been stuck in the 40s, no sunshine, fog. That's the tule fog. That's under the inversion. That's under the warmth. So you first look at your mountains to see if you're in inversion. If they're warmer or warmer than you, then you know you're in inversion. And this time of the year with a low sun angle, really showing up how cold it's been in that persistent fog. But these storms are going to break it away and get rid of it. Okay, what about the water year? The important water year, Southern California was really wet in November. 500 to 700 times as wet as usual. So compared to normal. Now, if you look at the dark blue, we're in good shape in Southern California. That's what got us out of the fire season. But Northern California, huge deficits, including Oregon. Look at Texas, and even the Southeast or much of the United States is running below normal. So we've got two wet areas, the far northern plains in Montana, and then Southern California and Arizona. But things are changing, and they will change significantly. How is this going to happen? The weather pattern now looks like this. So we've got a jet stream pointed right across the Pacific Northwest. That's been steering these atmospheric rivers from Hawaii into that area. Now, across California, we have an upper level high pressure. So in the summer, that would be really hot. Right now, it's really warm and dry in our mountains, and we just had another Santa Ana wind blow through, so even warmer. So this weather pattern here is going to sag southward. That'll be key towards Christmas. Take a look at things. Okay, as we get closer to Christmas or Christmas week, notice the Gulf of Alaska, Eastern Pacific, that starts to drop and buckle, okay? I put a red arrow because this is an undercutting pattern. Some of these undercutting patterns with an upper level ridge in the Central Pacific have produced some of the largest rain and snow totals in California. So that's important, that connection there. So this will sag southward, and because it's slow moving and it's parallel to the atmospheric river will stall on the 20th and 21st over Central California. Now, when we get closer to Christmas Eve, notice it drops even further south, but it's really slow moving. Remind you of any storms? Well, we've seen storms like this in December of 2010, which resulted in big precipitation. So it's going to really matter where that white line is, and that'll be the focus of the atmospheric river. I left that red arrow because we do have that undercutting. It's a very favorable wet pattern for California historically. This goes into Christmas Eve. Now, when we go towards Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, it's almost right on top of Northern California, as shown here. So very slow movement over the course of a few days. Very active weather pattern, jet stream sagging over California. Now, what about the day after Christmas? we can see that it's settled right over central and southern California. And my arrow points to what's next. So we're not done with this storm. It looks like we could see additional storms late December, New Year's Eve into early January. But the back part of the storm is right over central Southern California. So the coldest air, the lowest snow levels on December 26. Okay, now what about New Year's Eve that I mentioned? The next storm slides a similar path, slowly drops down across British Columbia, Eastern Pacific. And that'll be a key factor to reigniting the active weather or the heavy precipitation in the Pacific Northwest, and then eventually dropping down. Okay, so this keeps most of the United States on the mild side, and we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Okay, what about the atmospheric river for California? So I took a couple points here. This is Central California. Notice during Christmas week, a lot of spikes in here. So that's the potential for significant to strong atmospheric rivers. Not just one, but a couple in Central California. And then potentially redeveloping as we get towards January 1st or New Year's Eve. So continuous atmospheric river activity for a few days that will bring big numbers of precipitation, especially to the Bay Area and the Sierra Nevada. Now, I also looked at Southern California. Hey, are we going to get the rain? I've heard that question many times. Well, Southern California is going to miss out. Well, not with this kind of weather pattern. This shows the potential for significant to strong atmospheric river activity. Now, not as long a duration. Notice it's Christmas Eve all the way through the 26th with the peak on Christmas Day. So really focused on the holiday for SoCal. And then much more uncertainty as you get towards the new year or New Year's Eve. Okay, this is a map here. Take a second to look at this. You got to read it from right to left. And this is showing the current strong atmospheric river that's in the Pacific Northwest. It drops south. You can see the line. It drops down into Central California, and I've got Central and Northern California marked out. It doesn't go away. It weakens, and then it strengthens again around the 22nd and into the 23rd, and then it weakens again, and then it really fires up where I've got that arrow pointed, and that's going to be key, especially for Central and Southern California. So that atmospheric river looks to be the strongest of all of them as we go into Christmas Eve. And it doesn't go away. You can see there's still atmospheric river activity lingering through the 26th and 27th in Central and even Southern California. And then look at that next blob that we're watching form for Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. That's this other storm I talked about for New Year's Eve. That could eventually drop south as well. So take a look at this here. This is your impulses of atmospheric rivers, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more detail about those. So, courtesy of the Center for Western Weather Water Extremes. Okay, this is the atmospheric river pounding the Pacific Northwest as if they need more rain after about 25 inches in the mountains already, the Cascades. This is the Pineapple Express extending from Hawaii, the tail end in Hawaii, all the way into the Pacific Northwest. Now, this is going to sag southward over time, as shown here. So this is going to sag southward, as I'm indicating here, over the next couple days. So on the right-hand side, that is the 19th. Okay, here the atmospheric river, as I mentioned, weakens a little bit and then starts to refire and strengthen along the same stalled boundary as shown in the right. Also notice some new activity coming into Hawaii where these arrows are pointed. So this will take you into the 20th and near the 21st. Okay, that boundary is still there on the 21st and 22nd, but I've got the arrow pointed to where it really flares up on the 21st, then it weakens on the right-hand side as we get towards the 23rd. But I have an arrow pointed over this low pressure area. Keep an eye on that along the boundary. And then your eyes are probably also drawn to the massive activity down in Hawaii. That may or may not make it here. Looking right now like it's separate. Now look at the flare-up that occurs the 23rd and 24th Christmas Eve left to right. So on the left-hand side, that low pressure enhances, gets stronger. And why is that? Because there's an upper level trough or strong jet stream moving over the top. So this is cyclogenesis is what we call it. Deepening low pressure at the surface, not just above us. And that flares up the atmospheric river, focuses it, increases the wind speed, and slams California on the 24th or Christmas Eve. Now I've got the arrow pointed to a secondary one too. That'll keep the precipitation and bring the coldest air on the 26th of December. So significant evolution of this storm. Okay, when you go on to Christmas Day and the 26th, you can see here for Christmas Day, it's right over top of us. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, right over top of us as shown here. Okay, what kind of precipitation are we expected to see? Now, these are big numbers. You don't usually see this unless it's a tropical cyclone, hurricane. Now, it's really going to matter where that boundary sets up. Right now, you can see the atmospheric river boundary. Looks like there's 2 pulses, and it's focused on Central California, but it also extends down into Santa Barbara and the San Gabriels of Southern California. Look at the potential for the central northern Sierra Nevada and the North Coast, North Bay area. Big numbers. Potentially a couple feet of precipitation. And of course, a portion of that will be snow. Now, these are the 2 kind of well-known models, the US model, the European model, but they show basically the same thing. The Sierra Nevada stands out like a sore thumb, but also notice the heavy precipitation in Central California. That is your band that I talked about that's stalling, but you also get a southern pulse around Christmas Eve and Christmas Day that flares up in Southern California. Take a look at that. So you get big numbers potentially in the San Gabriel Mountains, Santa Barbara Mountains of Southern California as well. So we're not talking about a little bit of precipitation. We're talking about major precipitation for coastal areas, the mountains, the Central Valley, especially the northern Sacramento Valley, the Santa Barbara Mountains, all the way down into Southern California, as shown by the red and purples. Okay, we don't typically see precipitation in numerical weather prediction or models this high. And this has been consistent over the past several days, up to about a week. I listed some big events that we've seen in December, 1955, 64. What about February 86? Now, it's true that it's very dry across California right now, and we've seen almost no precipitation just recently in Northern California from a weak atmospheric river, but almost no precipitation across the state. So it's going to take a while to saturate things, but if this system stalls as shown, we could still have problems with flooding, river flooding, and also flash flooding right during the holidays, such as Christmas time. And we've seen this pattern before in December, but we've also seen it in January, and some of the dates shown here. And of course, one of the most famous ones was February 86. So the weather pattern doesn't end Christmas, so additional precipitation on that saturated ground could become really important as we go into the early January 26. In fact, take a look at this. So this has been predicting over the past week significant precipitation for the week of Christmas or the holiday week. But now it's extending it all the way to the end of the year as shown here, with cooler conditions settling around just after Christmas over the west. And then you see the warm conditions pumping up. So that's what happens. So often you hear like the ridge is being replaced. The ridge is not getting replaced. The heat dome is not blocking us. So this massive jet stream in the Pacific, an atmospheric river, is actually producing and inducing a big upper level ridge. And that's going to reposition itself instead of over California and the Great Basin to central eastern United States. So it's moving along. It's not replacing it. What about early January? This has been a trend over the past couple days. Potential for significant precipitation across California, even early January. And perhaps continuing into week 2 of January in the Pac Northwest, Pacific Northwest, where you see the cooler temperatures linger there. You see the dip in the jet stream, and you see the potential for atmospheric activity even coming out of Hawaii like we've been seeing recently, as shown here. So we're not over with by the holidays. And indications are that early January could be wet too, including potentially wet for California. Hope you found this useful. Have a great holiday. Be safe. Plan your travel accordingly. Heavy precipitation will cause travel impacts, potential flooding. Snow levels will be gradually coming down, so our mountain passes will be greatly impacted. First, Northern California, then the Tahoe area, and then eventually Southern California around Christmas. More information can be found on TikTok and YouTube, where we post short videos, and including this video, and we'll post real-time information on X. And you can look back, and we've been talking about this storm for almost a week now on the blog, so you can sign up for that as well. All right, everyone, have a great holiday coming up. Be safe. Check your local forecasts daily, because this is a significant major storm impacting California.